lead us in the pledge, please.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Todd. Would the city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Rich Guard.
Here.
Councilman Martin Canan.
Here.
Councilwoman Mary Ellen Christensen.
Present.
Councilman Jonathan Fabian.
I'm here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilman Todd Smith.
Here.
Mayor Ron Warpness.
Here. The declaration of a quorum is declared at this time. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Your Honor, I would move to approve the agenda at this time.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda item number 6 is resolution number 1296, WHAM, support for local authority on temporary suspension of liquor licenses. The chair would entertain a motion to remove resolution number 1296 from the table.
Your Honor, I would move to remove resolution 1296 from the table.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to remove resolution number 1296 from the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Motion carries with one nay vote. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of resolution number 1296 as amended.
Your Honor, I would move to approve resolution 1296 as amended at this time.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 1296. Is there discussion at this time?
Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman Fabian.
At our last meeting, the liquor dealers had indicated that they were, uncomfortable with part of the language. We did make an amendment to try to change that. I just wasn't sure if anyone here might have additional input into wording that they'd like to see.
Okay.
Nothing? All right. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the floor at this time. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Mayor votes aye. Motion passes with one nay vote. Okay, agenda item number 7, farmers market discussion. City administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The farmers market has been located on Broadway since inception about 2 years ago. The farmers market usually runs from mid-May till the beginning of October, depending on the availability of produce and the weather. The hours of operations are 5 to 7 p.m., and the road is closed down at 4 p.m. to allow people to set up. In the past 2 years, the city has received complaints from at least 2 businesses that are located near the farmers market. The complaints are related to access, lost business, how their clients were being treated, elderly not being able to walk to the business and blocking the street too early. The city has also received a couple of positive comments about how the farmers market, of having the farmers market in the downtown. I met with Sherry Shelley on March 19th, and she is interested in having the farmers market again. We just discussed some different locations because of the complaints that we'd received. The first idea that we brought up was the city parking lot that's between Broadway and North 3rd East. And this is a possibility. However, I think the logistical part of that, of trying to clear that parking lot, would be a very hard task to do, since we don't really regulate that parking lot at any time right now. Second, we discussed moving it to one street to the west on North 3rd East. This was a possibility since it doesn't get as much traffic on that street and not as many businesses affected. The one issue that we did talk about that Sherry was concerned about was the width of the street for turning around large trucks. Sherry agreed to contact the owners of them, and I guess we'll find out tonight what she found out. The final location was discussed with City Park. Sherry felt that we'd still need to close down a portion of East Fremont because the trucks couldn't drive up on the grass, and it would be nice to have the vendors in the park right off the sidewalks. Staff's concerns with the Broadway location is mainly related to South Federal construction. I know we've talked to several businesses that have seen an increased amount of traffic on that road. People move off of there to drive around South Federal, and they use Broadway because that can go all the way, connects up to Webwood. The other one is just the complaints that we've received. So we're looking at other options. I guess it's staff's recommendation that we look at either another street or try to move it to Cities Park. We provided a map on your in your packet that kind of shows the different streets that are available off of Main Street. We contacted downtown businesses. A couple of our staff went down and actually handed out flyers to the downtown businesses to see what they felt about it. I received 3 calls. One was from Meadowlark Books, and they think that the farmers market should stay right where it is. The second came from Studio 402, and they're not really happy with the location where it's at now. They have elderly folks that park in the handicap stalls. They've had issues in the past, and then the farmers market has not blocked that portion off. And then, but when they try to back out of that stall, once they get going, they have to back out right into Main Street, and they don't feel that's safe, especially from the elderly population. The third came from Jerry's Flowers. He was in favor of having it in the downtown. He was not necessarily set on having it in Broadway. I mean, he said it could be in any of them. He just wants it in the downtown. And so those were the comments that I received from people after we did the handouts. So we're here tonight, and Sherry's here to present any information that she has. And I think from staff's perspective, it would be nice to be able to solidify a place where they can have it so they don't have to bring this up every year and go through this discussion, you know, solidify something and have it there for a couple years. So I guess I'd turn the time over to Sherry at this time.
Sorry.
Well, my hope tonight really was to come and both, I'm going to just shut this. Is that going to hurt anything? I'm going to do it. Share our thoughts, and I've got a couple of other people with me that can kind of supplement that as well. Another organizer of the market, Steve Doyle, is here, as well as one of our really consistent, reliable vendors who sells her wares every week. I would love to be able to just visit about this rather than actually do a presentation. I didn't prepare that so much, although I do have some materials I can pass out. Here's a couple for the press, and then if you want to pass those on around, that'd be great. The material is largely background information that would, if anybody's still got an issue with whether or not it's important to have a farmer's market and what the value is to the community, that's what the material would address. It's not incredibly current. The best study I could get from the state, Wyoming Business Council, goes back to 11, I think, the research that they did in 2011, at which time there were 44 markets operating in the state. They're probably triple that amount now. The farmers market movement nationwide is just nothing but mushrooming. It's huge. Of the 44 people that responded, or that they sent queries to, or surveys to in 2011, they got responses back from 14, which led them to come to the conclusion that there had been over $1 million pumped back into the economy that were generated in those 14 farmers markets. So if the other remaining of the 44 that year did equally well, and it's reasonable to assume that they might have, that's some money to consider as our communities look at diversifying their economy base, at building ways for people to, you know, bring their kids back to Wyoming, for people to be here, to increase the general overall quality of life in our state. So that's basically what the information is that I passed out to you. In terms of the actual discussion about where we conduct a farmer's market, if we continue to have one, Steve and I actually did, following my visit with Steve Doyle and I went, looked and tried to really prioritize the things that seemed important to us that we needed to find in a farmer's market location. The bottom line is, and I think that Steve would concur with this, is that there are pluses and minuses for every single place we looked at, and we looked at the North 3rd East Street, which is west of Broadway, along by the Sartoma housing development and the Gales flooring carpet placed, yeah. That we looked there. We looked down the next way, or to the west, a block from Broadway, which is where your empty lot right on Main Street is. That was a dry cleaner and a filling station and various things over the years. Is now a flat, empty space. And last year, that was actually from the council. That was suggested. At that time, we thought that it would perhaps not be big enough for the growth we were expecting. We feel like we could accommodate, we could be there now, but at this point, it seemed that the reaction was, again, there are people who've now got a precedent of parking there, and it's going to be hard to change that somehow. So we also looked at the back half of that city parking lot that is between Broadway and 3rd East, and realized that we wouldn't need that entire parking lot, that we could get by with the north half of that parking lot, or maybe north 2/3 of it, down up to about 2/3 of the other distance as well, so that there would still be room for the residents of the Sartoma place to park. Contact Communication and Wyoming.com could still keep their stuff parked there. Kusels would still be able to use their section near the alley for unloading and loading their stuff, and we would be more over near Fremont, that street. And at some point I can go back through with all the, yays and nays for each of those locations. We also went down and looked at the city park with kind of a, trying to really keep an open mind to its possibilities, because it's been really fairly apparent to me that some of the council members would really like to see that at the city park. So some of the things that we need, that we've struggled with, quite frankly, our Broadway location doesn't provide any restroom facilities. We worked out a really favorable deal with Randy Kinsler, who brought a porta potty in, I think because it was a deal. We didn't pay him a great deal, some, but not the full amount. It wasn't cleaned regularly. We don't have a way to lock it up so that it's not used other than through the market hours. If we did, it wouldn't be an issue. But because it's open and because there are no other public, easily, readily available restroom facilities for people downtown, it gets used. And that has been a concern for neighboring businesses there as well as us. I mean, some of our market people are a little unhappy with the fact that it's not too clean. Unfortunately, we do not operate with any profit whatsoever. Our market vendors pay a small fee to have their booths there, their table space. The money turns immediately around and goes back to promoting the market, to advertising it. The volunteers who run it, which are Steve and myself and a couple of other people, get no money whatsoever from the market. What we don't have is overhead to pay for appropriate restroom facilities. So the restroom issue is definitely a significant issue. We need to find a better way to deal with that, whether it's multiple porta potties or the restroom facilities in the city park, which I assume are still there from the old swimming pool. I could be wrong, but they were at one time in that building. There were restroom facilities there. How we deal with that's something that needs to be addressed. The ongoing commitment that Mr. Weaver suggested, or ongoing decision, would be really helpful so that we don't revisit this every year, and so that the vendors have a little more sense of security. I mean, there are people right now who have planted extra stuff to raise for the farmers market this summer. There are at least 2 new greenhouses that have been put up to allow earlier crops to be available to the market earlier in the season. So the vendors are responding really favorably to the fact that we've got a market, that people in town really want to buy this stuff. We just have to figure out how to make it work really well for them. We look for visibility. It's fairly important that people, even strangers passing through town, know where the farmers market is. 2 ways we'd like to address that. One would be to see if it's possible to get a big banner that we could put up, as many communities have. A lot of times when you drive into a community, if you're looking for a farmer's market, which I tend to do, there will be a banner somewhere in that community, on a city street, in a park, something that stays up pretty much through this market season that says, you know, a farmer's market, Saturday, what time, and then some location there. It would be wonderful if we could do that at the end of Main Street, City Park, no matter where we put the market itself, to have that banner to help promote the market and increase that visibility. Right now, what we have are people who come through town. They're on their way, I presume, to Yellowstone. They're headed towards Du Bois West, for the most part, who see the tents, see the commotion, hear the music, pull over almost immediately, it seems, and walk up to the people. I always put, I don't know how many of you know Sean Huddleston, the big, tall, dark-haired man who works at Sweetwater Garden. We always put he and his wife on the corner because Sean is really gregarious. It's really easy to approach him for some reason. He's really willing to talk to people. And he tells me that in every market, 2 or 3 people approach him and say, hey, what's going on here? This looks interesting. And they're invariably travelers. They're tourists from somewhere else who've seen the market. They stop, they come and shop. We interact with them. My vendors tell me that they hear conversations like, well, but we really don't need eggs, hon. We're traveling, but people who want to buy things and are working out what they can buy, what will fit in their coolers. It's just been, that's been really kind of fun to watch happen, just sort of spontaneously. So visibility is important. We do need electricity, both for the food trucks, that we try to have a couple of providers of prepared food at our market because it's evening. We have a number of families who have come to count on coming to the market to shop and also buying supper for their families. Sometimes they eat it there, sometimes they take it home. But those food trucks typically require electricity, as does our musicians. We feel like live music is has really improved our market. It's really made the atmosphere nicer. We've got 3 musicians at this point who volunteer to come and play for us. They don't get paid. They just do it because they think it's important and they love it, and our vendors love it, our shoppers love it. They get a lot of really positive feedback from the live music, but that requires amplification, so it's good to have electricity for that. Right now on Broadway, we can run off of the city poles, and the city's been really great about flipping the light switch on so that there's electricity in the poles, and we run extension cords to accommodate those needs. Things that we'd love to have, again, that banner. We look for the aesthetics of the place, whether it's clean, whether it is appealing. The grass in City Park is a huge plus in that department. Trees are nice. Trees also provide shade, and shade is really nice for people who are out selling their things. We're trying hard to encourage our vendors to get a little more current and purchase their own awnings, their own shelters. That's kind of a standard farmers market thing, and we went from almost none at the beginning of last year to 4 or 5 people who were regularly bringing their little awning and putting it up. I think we'll see more and more of that each year as our vendors get a little more accustomed to what's going on. Wind blockage is was fairly important last summer. We can hope for less wind this year, I don't know. In that sense, the Broadway location is wonderful because the big tall building on the west side of the street provides tremendous wind protection for us and shade. No other place that we looked at has that wind factor, the shelter from the wind. However, Broadway is noisy. There's when big semis or loud pickups or motorcycles roar up and down Main, which they tend to do, they can really kind of make for some noise. When we were at City Park, it was much quieter, even though there's a fair amount of traffic on Federal, of course, but we were down a little bit to the east of Federal, just moved a little ways that way, and it was noticeably quieter. The grass absorbs noise, the trees there would be, improve that atmosphere pretty considerably. A big thing to me is wheelchair access, where the Broadway location has, it's just ideal, and we have a number of people who rely on coming to the market in their wheelchairs, more really for social than anything. But Elaine Bauman comes with her husband from wherever they live, Copper Mountain or Lysite, somewhere off out there. Bob sells things, and Elaine gets in her wheelchair and cruises around and visits with people, and he says it is the high point of her week. Before Carolyn Tyler died, she came regularly. We have a number of other older, largely women, mostly women, excuse me, I should rephrase that. Katie Ratliff, a number of other gals who love to come down. We have several who bring their lawn chairs and set them up along the sidewalk in the shade and visit with others that are walking by. So there's this, community thing that happens along with the actual sale and purchasing of food. Easy pedestrian access, the more centrally located we are, the more of that we have. Right now we're pulling largely from the neighborhood between Fremont and whatever it would be, Lincoln and Broadway, down 6 or 8 blocks that way. A number of those people walk to the market. I think a few from Ash Grove area do. I'm not as familiar with people who live on the south side of Maine, but I suspect there are some that come that direction as well. So I think I've covered most of what we wanted to talk about. I would say that Daylight Donuts has participated in the market they bring their ice cream cart and sell ice cream, very popular. Graham's Gluten-Free Foods have purchased a booth space pretty commonly, bring an awning and sell some of their organic produce there. Mammoth Music has provided much of our music, one of the musicians and a lot of equipment so that we can have our live music offering, and that's just been tremendous. The Renew Fitness Studio has offered free Zumba classes, which we tend to put north on Broadway, right out in the street, and that's been a lot of fun. People have enjoyed that. Their bounce house that they set up for children to play in, we've had that. So we've had some pretty enthusiastic actual participation from some of the downtown businesses, as well as several who didn't apparently respond to you, but I know that Clay from Outsportin' thinks that we're a good thing to have downtown, and Jason from Bar 10 gets all kinds of overflow business from us because a number of people who shop the market just go straight on down the street and have ribs and salad and stuff in his business. So we also looked at South Broadway, just directly across Main Street, knowing that we could leave the east side of that street open, just like we leave the east side open where we are on Broadway now. And that was deliberately designed so that those ladies using that handicap spot in the beauty salon didn't need to back up, that they could just drive straight on down and around the corner and be off and out of the market. We moved in so that there's, we moved to the west on Broadway. We can do the same thing in the next block. If the bank were supportive, then people driving through the drive-through bank window would just pull out and go right along the curb lane there and onto Main Street at the corner. And there are fewer businesses along there. There's County 10 and another beauty shop, and then the barber shop, and then on the corner yet another beauty salon. So there's just good things and bad things about every place that we've looked at. The worst thing about the park, from my perspective, is the challenge for people with walkers, with wheelchairs, with strollers and children. The pluses are the grass, the kids' play equipment, which are on the far side of the park. Just being at the park has some definite pluses. It doesn't bring that energy downtown, which was one of our initial hopes with our project, in requesting in the first place to have it downtown. But anyway, so that's kind of where we are, and I'd love to answer questions. I'm sure Steve and Marilyn would be happy to answer any other things or comment if we can discuss anything, or if you just want me to be quiet and go away.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry. If that was an unprepared remarks, why, I'd like to see the prepared one. Why don't you stay up, or one of your groups stay up at the podium, if you would, so that any questions the council might have or discussion, the audience will be able to hear at home. This is being televised, so.
I didn't know that. So thank you.
Yeah, it's what we all have to live with, I guess. But no, that was very comprehensive. I had a number of things that you raised questions in my mind, but I'll open it up to the council at this time to see if they have any questions of you to discuss.
Your Honor?
Yes, Councilman Christensen.
Question, but I wondered if there's anyone in the audience that wanted to have an opposing view. We hear complaints, but I personally haven't heard them. I didn't know if anybody wanted to voice those. Or... I would like to. Okay. Sure. Yeah.
So
why don't we go ahead and have the loyal opposition, I guess, is a way to describe it. Larry, if you'd come forward, please.
My name is Larry Kusel. I'm a business owner on Main and Broadway. And what I'd like to say is I'm not in opposition to farmers markets, because they are great and I love them. And I've been to a number of really good ones, as long as they're well thought out and positioned well to where everybody can benefit. And I'm sympathetic to everybody wanting to bring things downtown, but it does affect day-to-day business for some businesses. My business isn't the same as a lot of them, which foot traffic is nice, but my business requires trucks, freight, lots of movement, and it's become dangerous on Wednesdays. I have manufacturers that would deliver religiously on Wednesday. That was the route. They do not come now. It's a liability. It is for my guys and my delivery staff also. Another note on that is, business standpoint, I employ people and their income is derived off of sales, commissions, and deliveries. And that ceases at about 2:30 on Wednesday. Every single Wednesday, all summer long. That, from my standpoint, adds up to 2 days a month. Unfortunately, the things I have to pay for, my rent, my banknotes, they stay the same there. So I would love to find a great place downtown, but something that lets everybody conduct their business safely and effectively. The back half of the parking lot would be great, and if it was policed, it's like anything, people would get used to being gone on Wednesdays. It doesn't affect any traffic. Trucks can go up and down. Kids aren't running around, and they're in a safe place. I was told to offer you Masonic Temple parking lot for this, which it butts up against Broadway, and it's like straight across from Bar 10 and back there. That is something that was offered last year, but was poo-pooed away, but it's offered again by the Masons. And City Park is my personal favorite. I mean, that's all you hear about is take our park back, And nothing takes it back more than a set group of people there every single day on a schedule. It helps. So with that, I don't want to be that guy that runs off a farmer's market, which is a beautiful thing. But again, I have people that get hours cut on Wednesdays. I get people that do not have a chance to earn income on Wednesday afternoons. And I have companies that avoid Riverton on Wednesdays, or anything they can do to get around there. I've tried just pulling through. It makes you look like a bad guy to try to do business, but it has to be done. I have customers that just do not come down. You can't drive down there and load up your purchase and make it out. It's too much to ask somebody to buy something and then take a chance on going through there with your purchase. And it's just a lot to ask for of people to do that. They will not do it. And I can document what happens to my business on Wednesday afternoons. It is, you can see it and time everything, and that's when it stops. So I've tried to let people stand around and paying them to watch or go to the market. I've tried to pull through it and do it, and it's just too much to ask my young guys to drive equipment around there. And while it's stated that it's only on one side, it really kind of goes everywhere, and it's just a dangerous situation. So my alternative is to not operate on Wednesday afternoons. My bills don't go away, but there's no income there anyway, so you're better off not paying for lights and employees. Aside from finding a great place for it, I would love to have it anywhere nearby, off to a side street where people can have fun and not be worried about what happens to them. My other concern, as I was thinking about this, is the increased traffic I see now because of federal. I don't know. The chief of police could probably tell us how often they use Broadway to get to the other side of town in a hurry, but we see it regularly. And right now there's only 2 streets that go all the way across town, and now there's 1, and that's it. So that needs to be addressed too. If something's on fire or somebody's bleeding or something, how are they going to get from point A to point B the fastest without going? That's another concern I have. And not being much of a public speaker, I'll let it go at that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Larry, for your is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on this issue? Yes.
I guess introduce myself. I'm Matt Wright. I'm a Riverton citizen. You know me as the skate park supporter of the Central Wyoming Skateboarding Association, and I'm also on the, on the Master Plan Parks Committee that was recently organized by the city. Side note on that, we've had bi-weekly meetings, and it's going great. There's some good chemistry in the group, and we all seem to be on the same page about a lot of things, and plans are being formed there. So positive thing to try and improve parks in Riverton. I do want to share some things about the farmers market. I'm with Larry. I don't oppose the farmers market at all. In fact, I have friends. 2 of them are my friend. 2 of the musicians are friends of mine, and I love that. I love to have live music in Riverton. That's something I grew up with. And anyway, I work for PBS, and we do a show called Farm to Fork, which I'm very involved in, and that's been a neat thing. And we've interviewed at the farmers markets, and that's been a good thing for statewide exposure. Also, but there's a couple things I want to get out of the way real quick. I want to thank the chief of police and police department and the council for approving the cameras at City Park. Fantastic step in the right direction, I think, to improving the reputation there, monitoring the issues, and we even had this week an incident, and the cameras were able to take care of that. And as a skate park supporter, I do want to slightly just spend a second and vouch for the character of the two boys who were cited for some mischief there. And I want to say that I know them, and I know them well, and I know that they're not violent kids. They're good kids, and kids are kids. We were all kids, and sometimes they do stupid things. And anyway, so I do want to say the park has been great. The skate park. We got the kids involved building a few new things, so we've enhanced the park quite a bit just in the last 3 weeks, and there's some really fun stuff, and it's gotten the kids out of the woodworks. A lot of people who don't normally go there have been going there, having a lot of fun, and so that's been good. The school department, and it was community donated wood, which I thought was awesome. We just put out on our Facebook that we were looking to build some new things to prepare for a competition, which I need to get permission for. We want to hold a competition this summer, but I will get to the farmers market stuff. Hold on, and also so that's been great. The school let us use their woodworking shop and the welding shop, and gave us discounts on the materials, and that was a really great community effort there. So along with the school district awarding the skate park project $30,000, which is fantastic. So we're up in the over $100,000 range for the new park, and still going hard. So positive things there. Let's see, farmers market. It's been said about putting the farmers market in City Park. I think I see all positives with that. As far as visibility and letting the kids play and all the things that were mentioned, don't need to re-mention them. But there is an issue. I've talked to people in the farmers market, and it's as far as it's driving their trucks in and parking and having asphalt there. So my idea, and I know this sounds kind of funny coming from a skate park supporter, and I just want to put the bug in your ear, and it's probably definitely not something we could do this year, but in the future, if there was a parking lot in City Park, that makes it much more inviting for all sorts of events and just day passerbys who want to park and have lunch and go. Parking lots are so important. We all have cars, and but where do we put it? We've in the beginning I wanted to move the skate park. That was my thing. But I'm all for right now. I'm all for creating a positive environment in City Park, and I think a parking lot has to be there. And what do we do with the skate park? What do we do with that area? The late Bill Urbicite, who passed, I respect him as a man and his contribution to the city. And one thing he told me was that concrete there just isn't going anywhere. It's the old public pool area. It's so old. There's disputations on that. Some say a concrete company could just tear it up and get rid of it right away, or use city equipment even. But could it be capped? Could some asphalt be laid over that area? That's something I think we ought to consider. It's 30,000 square feet. I mean, it's a big area for a great parking lot. I can see it happening, and I would certainly sacrifice that as a huge skate park supporter. I would sacrifice that for the good of City Park, because in order for the skate park to be successful, City Park has to be successful. So having a farmer's market there every week, like Larry said, that's one big step in getting our city park back for our families. I had more, but if you have any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council at this time? Step up. Can you identify yourself for the?
Huh?
Can you identify yourself for the viewing public, please?
Kathy Irvin. I have the winery up here on the hill. The only problem I see with having it in the park is when I was doing the farmers market, I had a pickup load. I'm not going to carry boxes and boxes just to get into the park. My statement is if we have it downtown where we can use it, you've got pavement and we can sell out of the back of the pickup. And that's the same with the people with the mushrooms. They come in, they don't want to unload everything to go into the park. I'm sure we would lose a lot of our vendors if they had to carry it in, because they spent all day picking it. They don't want to have to carry it all in. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. They say there are two things in life that you're most scared to death of. One is dying by fire. The second is public speaking.
Okay.
Guess which my fear is.
You identify yourself, please.
My name is Leslie Larson, and I am the owner of Studio 402 Day Spa. And I will also agree that I think a farmer's market in a community is a great thing. I appreciate the idea of trying to bring business to downtown. But if you have even one brick and mortar business that is paying taxes and paying bills to your community and their voice is not heard and they're losing revenue, I think that needs to be addressed and listened to. As to the cars on the east side of the street having access out, I unfortunately disagree with that. In the end of June, we had a young woman in her early 20s who was in the salon, and she left the salon around 5:30 and was told she could not move her car until after 7 o'clock when the farmer's market was done. And she was parked on the east side of the street. She came back into my business and said, "What can you do to help me?" We walked out. We looked, we came back in, and I said, "You know what, we'll call the police." I had talked to Chief Broadhead, and he said, "If you can't get a car moved, call us, we'll help you." So I did. I called the police. It took the police an hour to come and respond. By the time they got there, this young woman's husband had already came because the people that had their booths set up on the east side of the street had told her they wanted her to back out onto Main Street. By the time her husband came, they went ahead and they moved their tables, and she was able to pull out and head down Broadway. The farmer's market is a huge issue for me. It's not that I don't like it. I do like a farmer's market, but I have 8 independent contractors who are young people trying to support their families. And those people come in. There are 6 salons within 2 blocks downtown. We're not the only game in town. We are in huge competition. Myself and one other person are the only 2 that work on Wednesday afternoons now, because our clients don't want to come on the farmer's market day. They can't get parking, and it's too much of a hassle. My business is open from 10 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. I don't close down at 5. I don't close down at 6. I accommodate people on weekends and evenings. I'm in a service industry, and we're trying to provide a relaxing, comfortable atmosphere. And if somebody has to get up in between their service and walk outside with foils in their hair to go move their car at 4 o'clock, that takes away their relaxation and their pampering. And we've had to do that. We've had to go and move our clients' cars themselves. And it's another problem that I had, and I honestly don't want to bash the farmer's market. I really, truly don't. But we had a client come at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. She came in for multiple services. Some people don't just come for one thing. She came in for a manicure and a pedicure. At 4 o'clock, she received a phone call. I took the call from her daughter that the police had called. They were going to tow her car because the farmer's market wanted it towed. It was on the west side of the street at that time. Went in, I told her what happened. She said, I'm going to move my car when my appointment's done in 15 minutes. She walked out and she wrote the whole thing down for me. But she walked out and somebody from the farmer's market came and said, we're going to tow your car if you don't move it. And she said, when I parked here at 2 o'clock, I didn't realize this space was no parking. And she got in her car and she left. So we've tried. I mean, we try to tell our clients, we put a sign on our door, please don't park on Broadway after 3. Park down at the empty lot. We've tried. I've tried to make lemonades out of lemon. I've put a sign out, farmer's market special, 15% off of products. The first week I got nothing. The second week I got somebody who came in and said, your sign's on my sidewalk. That made no sense to me. So I've tried to support it and to like it. But all I get, and all my clients seem to get, is headaches and grief. But I support it anywhere else downtown. I'd love to see it on the lot on the opposite street corner from me. I think that's a perfect place for it. Accent Salon is closed down. Bombers shouldn't be an issue if it's family friendly because you've already got Ralph's and you've got the Cedar and you've got the Eagles right there at the end of Broadway. I personally think that the park is the best place. I agree. Take our park back. When we have day in the park, people go to the park. They use the park. They use walkers. They use strollers. They make it work and they go. My mother-in-law is in a walker and a wheelchair and we take her to day in the park every single year. There's got to be a better place that's going to support everyone downtown. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Okay, is there council discussion? Yes.
I know I think the park is a good idea, but my only concern is that going to be doable when we start with North Federal, being able for those vehicles and those people to get across during that time frame? I mean, I'm not sure how long North Federal is planned to be ripped up in that section, but you know, I'm sure it's going to affect them to a certain extent.
It's my understanding that the rebuild of North Federal has been set back to 2017. And so it's going to be a while down the road before we have to address that. And we'll probably have this discussion a couple more times between now and then. It's also my understanding that this evening, this is a work session. We're not going to take any action on this issue. And so it's not time sensitive. It's something that has to be done right now. We're just trying to flesh out the different issues that are being raised this evening and give the council an opportunity to think about them and perhaps come back with recommendations that will fit the needs of the community. So I just wanted to lay that out so that if at least that's my perception. We had one action item this evening, and that was something that had to be done this evening in order to get to WHAM, the resolution that we just passed. And so the rest of the things here, it's my understanding, are there's no action to be taken on them. Is that correct, Mr. Weaver?
Your Honor, it's really up to you as you want. I know they need to know by a certain time frame, but we can probably put that off till next week if there needs to be an action item. Yeah. So I believe their plan is start in May.
Historically, with few exceptions, we've taken action in a work session, and I feel very uncomfortable going that way at this time personally. but,
Your Honor?
yes, Councilman Fabian.
First of all, I'd just like to say that I do strongly support the farmers market. I actually have plenty of clients from my business that participate in buying and selling as part of that. My wife has participated offering a craft at one point along the way, and I mean, I think it's an absolutely wonderful thing to have in our community. There is no doubt about that. And I guess the struggle I have is that, you know, I also own a small business, and I can't imagine seeing my business hurt. You know, if I could really look at it and say having this go on in front of my business is not helping my business, it's hurting my business, that would be detrimental to me, and I would be pretty upset if something didn't happen to change it. So, you know, in my mind, it's looking more and more like the current Broadway location isn't going to be, it's where it's going to get to stay. So that, you know, for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's businesses that are upset. Number two, that is our only operatable thoroughfare through town that way. So those things being said, do the farmers market individuals have a preference of the other three sites? I mean, is there one that you could say, if we got our pick of the three, we'd pick this one? Or is it too hard to? Yes, sir. Come on up.
I'm Steve Doyle, and I work with Sherry Shelley with operating the farmers market. She told you that a week or so ago we took a look at a lot of different sites. We do think downtown is better than Dogpatch. The Broadway works for us. We understand we're sensitive to businesses that are paying taxes. We really are. But for us, Broadway works well. I think that both of us agree that City Park could work. The parking, the vehicles, we're growing farmers. We have a lot more farmers. We have several farmers. We have building hoop houses. We have some young farmers who are becoming truck farmers who really have found this to be valuable to them. Well, they're bringing in produce, a lot of produce. And like one of the citizens said before, you know, they can't just cart this stuff out. They need a place they can park their vehicle. So for us, when we looked, we thought that Fremont would be the best. We thought we could visualize Fremont. That's on the north side of the park. And if you were able to block off a block and a half to stop traffic there, you would impact very few citizens. It's not a real important thoroughfare, but it would also, I believe, give us an opportunity to get a truck parked in and backed up against the curb right there where the sidewalk is on the north side of the park. We think that's workable. We would have visibility to the main street, which we think is important. But as Sherry said, yeah, is it perfect? No, but it's workable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor?
Yes, Councilman Guard.
In taking a few notes, there are bathrooms in City Park still, and there's boys and girls, and they're fairly well taken care of. They're commercial, and the city takes a good job of taking care of them. And didn't we have some discussion about banners before and why we could or we couldn't put a banner up at the end of the street like Lander does?
Every organization in town would love to have a banner there.
Yeah, Your Honor,
that's
that was
the problem.
Yeah, we talked about it when I think we had the political signs discussion. The only way you could use the right-of-way of the cities were out in front of your house. So typically in the park, we used to have some banners down there. We stopped doing that just because everybody wants to use it instead of just a select few. And but it could go on any business on back of the sidewalk because that's on private property.
So if we set poles in the park, or am I understanding that you could set a banner there if we were deeper into the park? Because when I hear the needs, they need bathrooms, they need a long-term location, they need banners to put up to draw people to it, electricity. We have a band shelter right there that would much improve the live music that's being played. The wind blockage isn't as good as a large building, but we do have trees and the band shelter itself. We also have quite a bit of off-street parking at the old swimming pool location. The big heavy trucks could pull into that parking lot, turn around backwards, and sell out of the back of those vehicles right now, right in our current parking. There is some ties and some railroad ties in there that we may have to do some work with, but there would be ways to bring those off the street and sell out of those in those locations. The trucks, you know, if I'm not mistaken, we use the curb section as we pull vehicles in on Broadway, so we could do the same thing on Fremont, like you suggest, and use the back of vehicles to sell out of that. I think the farmers market is a wonderful idea, and if we, just like the comments made about having the camera improvements in City Park, the more we come back to City Park, the better the park's gonna be. And the more people are using it, the more the playground equipment's being used, and we could really use the help there. More so than anything, we could use the help to liven up the park and make people feel like that's where they wanted to go, and even go there to eat their lunch. And if we needed to help do some improvements, you know, on the day in the park, I can see on the map that I'm looking at, there's a diagonal piece of concrete there also that runs through the park that we could set up on both sides of that, which is in earshot of the...
Can I come talk to you?
Sure, please.
Sorry. All of those things are really true. What we think that we're envisioning is closer to Federal than to whatever the street is, that 11th or 10th on the far
North
side of the park.
9th.
Oh, that's 9th? Okay, excuse me.
No, North 10th goes along the back of the park.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
North 10th.
If we get, you know, the whole distance is huge. It's really bigger than we are right now. Eventually, maybe we'll get that big, but we're not yet. We need to be closer to Federal for that pass-through visibility, for people to be reminded, oh yeah, this is Wednesday, the farmers market is happening, that kind of thing as they're going home to work or from work or whatever. Which makes the band shell, the way it's oriented, not all that useful for us, but we could certainly set our musician just this side of the band shell, to the west of it, pointed kind of back towards Federal. Bring the pickups and trucks in along that curb, pickups parallel, or perpendicular to the curb, so that people could still, it's a really narrow sidewalk, fairly old, but people could still walk up and down the sidewalk to shop, put tables and canopies on the other side of that sidewalk. We're really not big enough yet to utilize the diagonal. I mean, we're not the day in the park. We vary from 20 vendors and our at the weekends of each of the market in the spring and in the fall, up to 40 to 45 at our peak. So we kind of start small and we get bigger, and then we taper off again as the season progresses. But 40 is a long, far cry from what Day in the Park does with everybody that they have. We don't need the whole park by a long ways. And the very back area behind the skate park and everything is almost too removed from the bulk of where, but we could, I think we could get the mushroom truck and pull those guys up parallel to the curb. They can sell out of the back of their pickups. The food concessionaires, the people who do prepared food, same deal, they'd be parallel. Fremont would be impacted, and the few houses that are along there would be impacted every week for a couple of 3 hours. If we were to stay downtown, one thing that's been discussed is altering the hours a little bit, so that instead of blocking the street at 4, and I will certainly also share that when our vendors first started, nobody knew. We didn't know what we were doing in terms of setting it up, and our vendors didn't know how long it would take them to get set up. As last season progressed, and we got a real pattern figured out for where people worked best, what worked best for different individual vendors, and they learned what they needed to do, we shortened the time dramatically for setup. They didn't need the 2 hours we were giving them initially. We got it way down to an hour, 45 minutes in some cases. The earlier we set up, the earlier people come, no matter what time we say we're going to start sales. It's actually better for us to be later with that. So this year, the plan is to start setting up at 4, or if we were to stay downtown, we would set up at 4:30 and not start sales until 5:30. Right now it's 4 to 5. That's what we're planning for this season. If we're at City Park, we'll do 4 to 5 setup. That's how long Fremont would be blocked. Or if we're on Broadway or one of the other downtown locations that involves traffic, we could start at 4 or 4:30, kind of depending on what the neighbors needed and wanted around us. The Masonic parking lot or area, we didn't really look at closely. I didn't even realize that was an option. I know that it's pretty rocky and bumpy in parts of it, but parts of it are reasonably smooth. That might be something that we should take another look at. It's certainly not green or shady or wind protected, sun protected, any of those features, but it's off the, it's out of a street. Looking again at the backside of that parking lot behind Kusel's, it sounds like Larry feels like that could be made to work as long as we, left plenty of opportunity for his trucks to get up and down the alley and his people who need to pick up purchases up and down the alley, and we would certainly stay way to the north of that, if that were an option that you wanted to think about. But I really, really appreciate your willingness to have this discussion. I presume you'll continue it when we're not around, but with maybe more information now than you had before. We've certainly gotten more. Looking forward into the future, actually designing an area that would accommodate a farmer's market, as Matt suggested, is visionary. I mean, that would be a wonderful thing to consider, and that would be, if the skate park is going to move to another part of City Park, that would be a perfect place, as he says, to just use that area that's the current skate park, finish the surface of it in some way that we could do a regular farmer's market there. That would be absolutely beautiful. So with all that, I appreciate so much your time tonight. I've even given this a lot of effort, and it's important to those of us that work on it. I'm not sure in the great big picture of city management it's the most important thing you deal with, but I really appreciate your attention to it.
I think we're all very supportive of the farmers market. I don't think that's an issue at all. And you guys have done a wonderful job down there growing to this point in time, and I certainly wouldn't want to do anything that would damage that potential growth in the future. I guess the only thing that concerns me a little bit about the park area is the additional congestion that it's going to throw on the road construction that's down there now.
Right.
And if you have people coming from the north driving south and they drive by and see this big banner that says farmers market, oh my gosh. So the first thing they're going to do is to look how to turn around the block. Well, you've got everything narrowed down to one lane, and then on Washington Street, so I can see that congestion there. I never did quite understand why there was more traffic on Broadway as a result of that, but I have no reason not to believe that it's accurate. But it just didn't kind of make sense to me. But then we're looking at moving down there where it is congested. So I don't know. It says, but I agree with you. There's been a lot of things that have been brought up here this evening that I think are worth looking at. If you were to close off Fremont Street there right beside the park, then that would kind of take away the need for a banner in the park, because you could just put it right there on that street. And every car that would drive both directions, you would miss a few that would come down Main Street and turn right and go to Lander. That may be a possibility, but I know that every organization in town would love to have a banner in City Park, and we get those requests regularly, you know, whether it's the 1838 Rendezvous or, you know, Day in the Park or whatever it is, they want to have something there. And that certainly is something that's been talked about in the past. I know Mr. Eberkite had a vision of having one of these electronic signs that was up there, and you could type in what the coming event is for the week of Riverton. Well, I was never very supportive of that idea. It's much too Las Vegas for me. But, you know, there is that need, and we all want to promote what it is that we're doing. So we understand that, and you obviously have passion for what you're doing and do a good job. Are there any restrictions on sales that you have of anything? I was reading some of the literature on the Day in the Park, and that was one of the restrictions, that they must be handmade or locally made. Or is there any those kinds of restrictions on what you're doing?
We hadn't, the Wednesday market doesn't have a ton of rules. We're not big rule people, it turns out. We have implemented rules as we've seen a need for them. Initially, we just wanted a lot of people there, and we weren't really concerned so much about their produce being from Wyoming or from Fremont County or how it was raised, other than to say to people, label it so that people who are buying it, if that's a concern for them, that it be not treated with chemicals, make that clear. If you're actually certified organic, which very few people really are, you can label organic. We have those rules. We also work with the Wyoming Ag Department's Consumer Health Division, implementing their safety rules. This year we'll be being a little more clear with people because we're getting ready to join the buy local, what is it, buy local, buy fresh, whatever thing, that campaign, because they have some great artwork that then we have access to if we become one of their members. They have some rules and require that, for instance, we have a couple of vendors coming up from Colorado now who are selling at our market on a regular basis every week. They kind of just do a circuit through the state, and they do Casper on Tuesday, and they do us on Wednesday, and they go somewhere else on Thursday. And we'll be encouraging those folks to label that their products are from Colorado. But we certainly don't encourage, you know, we don't have sales of Tupperware and other kinds of hard goods like that that some people deal in. Although I do think that there's, you know, a little bit of an argument to be made for just encouraging business at all levels, whether it's a homemaker who's just making some extra funds for the family, selling books or whatever it is, candles, all those different things. We aren't really encouraging those kind of products. We definitely have a lot of handcrafted things as well as a lot of food things. We're really a food market, but we don't ban people who make soap, because that's actually a product of a lot of natural things. People who recycle, we've got a woman who does a lot of recycled sewn material, things where she makes everything from pot holders to aprons and pillows out of denim and other kinds of recycled fabrics, that sort of thing. And they're pretty popular. People come down and buy them. They like them. So we don't have a ton of restrictions. We try to minimize that as much as we can. We're pretty open to supporting people's enterprises.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilman Gard.
There's a few other things I wanted to point out while we're at that. Don was kind enough to have me look at the federal reports for the reconstruction, and there's 22,000 car count on federal compared to 14,000 car count on Main Street. And so if we're really trying to attract...
Plus and a minus.
Well, you were just trying to sell us that was a plus, that people from out of town are going to stop and walk through our farmers market. And so I really think that if we stop and talk about this a little bit, we'll find that there's a lot of real pluses to that location the reconstruction is going to be gone someday. You know, that's just the way, that's the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
And if it ever does start,
Yeah.
now we're at 17. And so, you know, I think there's some good points to be made there. And the facilities are ours. We own the facilities at City Park. So we really do have a little bit more leverage. We're not leaning on other citizens to tell them what we need them to do or request their participation. I did talk to all 4 of the businesses that are on Broadway. 2 of them, Big West Oil had no problems, nor did the embroidery shop. They welcomed the location of the farmers market. We've heard from the other 2. Robert's Rules, 50% vote loses, I believe. But I think it's important to point out that we're trying to grow community support, not squelch the people that we don't want to hear from. And so we could really use the help at City Park if you could figure out how to do it. We really do need your help. And so if you could figure out how to get it there.
Is there any possibility of making a better sidewalk along that street, along Fremont and City Park? Fatter and smoother?
I'm just a 1-vote councilman.
This is a discussion. This is what I was hoping for in the first place.
I would think that would be possible, especially in the time frame that we're talking about. It doesn't have to be done this year. But yeah, I think that's a reality. I think there's a lot of possibilities. Matt's suggestion, is Matt left? Oh, okay, I can say this then. Matt would really like us to use that corner so he could get another corner.
Oh,
and so, you know, the tennis court is available.
Sure.
We could close the tennis court for a day or for the same time and put some produce inside on the tennis courts if that works. I mean, we're open to anything you can do for us there.
We just want to be clumped up. We need to be together because that builds that whole community thing, the conversations, the bonds between the buyers and the sellers, between the, you know, all the people who are shopping. It's a huge social event as well as
that's what we want.
Enterprise.
And the trees and the shade and maybe people will even stay longer and use the park longer and the kids can swing on the swings.
2 more picnic tables would be wonderful. There's only 2 right now, which is interesting.
We can probably help that. But yeah, if we get some feedback like that, we really do want it to be successful. And we want people to come to the farmers market. We want it to flow. We want it to work. And we really could use your help.
Well, we want it to work too.
Yes, Councilman Christensen.
Your Honor, the one thing I went around to the homes around the park, talked to some businesses today, and Ralph's is in support of it also.
No, Ralph's gets a business from us.
Yeah, so there's another one. The one thing I found out that everybody likes the farmer's market. Everybody knows where the farmer's market is. And everybody, I mean, it's, they are for the location or against. I mean, it's, I don't know, I think it's a little bit for. People are very sympathetic, including myself, to the businesses. I think they had great ideas, all the people I talked to. But the opposition to the homes and whatnot around the park is not great either. They're not thrilled about having that every Wednesday. I just, you know, the people I know down there, a couple of the businesses over there, they don't want to hassle with it because it's going to be enough with federal going on. I just think there's ways to work out the location now. I think visibility is a big deal for you guys. I think it'd be tough to move it, and I just want to be clear where the location, what we're talking about on Fremont. I'm not quite sure. Is it on the corner of the park right across from the convenience store?
I think more or less. Maybe down just
down a little bit,
but not much.
And on the street, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, because that is a big issue. Because being a nurse, it's tough to get on that grass. I'm sorry, my daughter's handicapped. I have a heck of a time. I unfortunately have spilled a couple people out of their wheelchairs on the day in the park. It's a little embarrassing, but anyways, I just think it's not conducive to everyone. Some people are more able than others. I like the street idea. I like good sidewalks because I guarantee you I run a business that deals with people on sidewalks and lots of broken bones. Sidewalks are a must for our senior population and some others. One thing I'd just like to add, I did take it upon myself to get with YDOT about the increased traffic. There is no evidence at this time that there's any more increased traffic on Broadway than there ever was. I did talk to Robert. I can't pronounce his last name. Had a lengthy conversation with him. He said, go ahead and use that. As a longtime resident of Broadway, I see no more traffic on Broadway than I ever have. It's always busy, always. I sit in my front yard the minute it gets warm, and that started the other day. I have my lawn chair out there, and I enjoy sitting out there. It's the same traffic as I've ever seen. Obviously, I'm in support of the location now. I think there's ways to help the two businesses. I think starting later will help Kusels. I think moving it back to 4:30, even maybe 5. It would help that 2:30 timeline. The handicap parking, I think moving it, the safety issue about going across the road with the trucks, I don't know how much activity. I'd have to know how much activity. I've been to the farmer's market. I've never seen the truck going back and forth or trucks or whatever.
It does, and we're careful.
Does it? Okay, I've just never seen any. Yeah. So, but it worries me about Federal being under construction. We're going to move you again because you're not going to have the visibility that you have.
Well, if Federal were all torn up, the dirt would be a huge issue, sure. Honestly.
Well, the one thing that keeps sticking out to me is the #1 goal when you first came was that it's to bring people downtown. I love downtown. Think people ought to go down there, and I like the idea of it down there. I think there's a lot of factors, what you were talking about, the traffic right now. It's just, it's not going to be easy to get around there, and then add a few more years on there. I just think there's ways to work with the two businesses that, I mean, just work together a little bit more. I was thinking about, like, some of the trucks that are in the city parking lot. I like the city parking lot. That was your first recommendation, and
that's what I
we
came
shot it down.
For 2 years ago.
Yeah, we shot it down. So it was a great idea. Where are all those trucks going to go? I'm guessing big oil company is going to park along. They're going to park in front of those businesses. All the other businesses that park in there, and leave them there. They're going to be on Main Street, so it's always going to be a parking thing. The one business I talked to today, they have problems with parking right along there currently, and they've worked it out. It was really nice to hear that. She goes, "No, we've got it all worked out. We don't worry anymore." Like it down there for many for the visibility, for the handicap accessibility. I talked to Mrs. The woman that you were talking about in the wheelchair. They love it. Yes, they just think it's great. My daughter thinks it's great. You've been there for a while. Every year we do this. We move them here, we move them there. When you go to City Park, you're going to move there because the neighbors don't like it there either. So I think it's wherever it is, there's people not going to like it. So we got to, it's been in the place for 3 years. We got to work with the local businesses to figure it out. Okay. My opinion.
Any other councilman have any comments? Martin? No comment. Okay. Thank you very much, Sherry. I think we've had a good discussion this evening, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Thank you.
I'm Marilyn Barham, and I'm one of the vendors, one of the steady vendors at the farmer's market.
Oh.
I don't sell produce. I'm one that sells handmade, homemade crafts. This is my livelihood. I need a job, so this is what I do. My biggest concern about a lot of these facilities, and I hadn't had a chance to talk to Steve and Sherry about it, is the fact of the parking. Now, we're talking the farmers and the vendors, but we're not taking into consideration the public, because they have to have a facility, a place to park. And from experience, I've learned that around City Park, it's very, very hard to have a lot of parking, because we're in such a short time, and we have, we may have 200 or 300 people through in a short time. So, they've all got to have places to park and easy accessibility. And if they don't have the easy accessibility, they don't stop. So this is a thought in consideration of a location. This is the only one I can think of right now, because I think we've covered everything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. We appreciate it. Okay, is there anyone else who wants to address the council? All right, next agenda item is transfer of detox building from from city to Center of Hope. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. On February 11th, Heath Steele from the Center of Hope gave a presentation to the City Council talking about what they've been doing in their facility since they took it over in July. And Mr. Steele requested the option of transferring the property on Adams to them, because they want to make some improvements to that property, and they want to have the benefits of making those improvements. On March 14th, the city actually received a formal notice asking for that, a particular transfer of ownership, and they were willing to do that. After staff received this request, we looked into this and found out this is not something we can do. I mean, this is not as easy as it looks, in the fact of any city property that we put up for sale has to go follow the same process. You got to declare it surplus. You've got to put it on the market and give everybody the equal opportunity of purchasing that property, and there is no exceptions to that. And discussions with the city attorney, he said there's not a lot of options with that. So we started to brainstorm to see if there was other options that we could help solidify this issue with, mainly because I guess in my perspective is we have a property that's owned by the city, and I initially put in my staff report here 30,000. They're actually talking about 200 and let's see, where's my 250,000. So they're potentially going to invest quite a bit of money into that property, and I can see why would they want to invest in a city property that in the end
Won't be theirs.
It won't be theirs. And ultimately they look down the road and they don't see themselves on the Adams Street location because it's not going to be big enough. And so they want a little bit of help or some assurance that if they made this investment that somehow they would be able to get their money back. Now I put a couple of different options on here. I don't know if they're very good options, really. I think when I had a discussion with Mr. Heath and one of his counterparts just this last week after I'd written the staff report, and so they're looking at three different options. The first option is a substantial remodel of an additional 2,000 square feet. Now I'm going to pass around a map. There's only one here, but this shows you currently that property is zoned I-1, which you don't have a setback requirement. So it's 0.43, let's see, 0.49 acres, which is about 21,344 square feet. The current building is about 4,000 square feet. And so we don't have issues with setbacks, but it is an odd looking shaped lot. It's not just a standard rectangle. So the options that they're looking at are the 2,000 square foot remodel at a cost of about $250,000. A little smaller option, a 36 by 40, a remodel of about $175,000. And then their last option was talking about bringing a modular building in, which they don't even really want to go that option because it's not connected to the building and they would have to supply separate staff over there, and it's not a good. So after our discussions, their main thing that they would like the council to consider is some sort of shared cost when they do these improvements. Now, I don't have exactly the number of, they're applying for grants with the state because they're looking at monies that are available more than just the detoxification. Because we talked about a warming hut or some place for people just to get off the street so they don't freeze to death in the park. So they're looking at another a pot of money, and they're really feeling about a 90% chance that they're going to get some of that money. Plus, they have the sale of the transitional housing, which wasn't much, but they have a little bit of money, so they want to put that together, and then the remaining costs they would hope would come from the city, because ultimately the city would benefit in the fact that we own the building, and if we ever went to sell it, those improvements would increase the value of the property. But I don't. What would we use it for? And so, really, the point of this discussion is to see if there's other options that you can think of. If we don't do any of these things, I'm not sure what they'll do. I mean, they may choose to just do status quo and not try to make any of these improvements because they don't want to invest so much money in a property that's not theirs. But I think there's a definite need. We need to expand that. It's just a matter of how we go about making that happen for them. Because they did look at other properties around the city. They couldn't find any that really fit the description. They looked up at the old John Deere site up there on Main. It's too large. The High Plains Power, obviously that's too big. There wasn't a lot of options, but if they had another location they could do it, then it would become theirs, their responsibility, their liability. I don't know. It's just a hard thing to deal with, only the fact of it's not that great of a condition of a building, and they want to invest $250,000 in it.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Gardner.
What if we bought them a lot in Lander?
We're on the reservation.
Yeah.
Bad suggestion, but that is a poor location. I've owned property on Hirsch Street, and it's not paved, and it's the only saving quality, and I only say this, I have no input or know of any knowledge of that, but the next adjoining landowner is Don Struby, and he may be willing to entertain some kind of buyout on his property if it needs to be additional footage that would help, or maybe a diminishing of his lot. So, you know, you could approach Don and see if that would work. But man, that's a great idea. If they could invest $250,000, Sandy would love that, and we ought to try to help them if that works. I'm a little bit cautious because I think we need to have a discussion about what the airport's going to cost us.
Yeah.
I see Courtney shivering over there right now. She thought what we were spending was a lot. So. I think they've done a wonderful job since they've taken over. And so I think anything that we can do without committing a lot of funds to, we ought to do everything we can to support them.
Yeah, Your Honor, I think they're mainly just looking for some skin in the game, but I couldn't ever get a number out of them. Does that $2,000? Is that $40,000 or $100,000?
How much money are we investing each year with the detox center? Are we investing anything, or is it just in-kind match for rent that we're charging? And
well, we are. How much do we? Is it 112,500? I believe is how much we.
It's 100,000, and then we added 12 when they came to town.
Yeah, and then the in-kind of the building itself, because we don't charge them rent on the building. But we need to redo the building lease because our building lease is with the old facility and not with them. And that's why I was talking about something where we could put, I just don't see us ever wanting to kick them out and then have to pay back those. But they said those are all great options because at least it gives them some security to know that we're not going to say, hey, we need to use that building. Thanks for the investment. Thanks for improving our building, and you're gone now.
Your Honor?
Yes, Councilman Garza.
Do they have to have an in-city lot? Could we go to the airport lots?
Yeah.
Would they be all right up there?
In Your Honor, that was one thing I talked to them about, but they are really looking for a kind of a central location is what they talked about. I mean, that the location right now is in a pretty good spot because it's not too far from any location, and if they isolated themselves, then you'd have more of the transportation issues or...
Yeah.
So the airport is not a good idea?
The airport isolation I wouldn't think would be good. But anyway. I agree with you 100% that we need to do everything we can to help them expand. And even if it costs us a little bit of money, I don't have any problem with that. Because it's, we're going to pay them now or pay them later. And the good work that they're doing in our community is saving us a lot of money. And so I think we need to help them as we can without, going overboard. But yeah, I was disappointed that we weren't able to get loose from the liability side of things. I understand their position that if we were to put it on the market and say, okay, have it appraised for $50,000 or whatever it comes back, and then just put it on the market and see if there's someone out there that's willing to buy it. And if they are, then take that cash and turn it into something at another location that meets their needs, but they apparently are not willing to take that risk. So, anyway.
Your Honor?
Yes, Councilman Fabian.
What rule is it? I mean, I guess, is it a state rule, or what rule is it that forces us to dispose of it in this way?
Your Honor, yeah, it's state statute of how we dispose of property.
And there is no...
You can't dispose of anything without going through that.
Yeah. I believe that the attorney said it has to be related to the poor, and he says, I don't know how people with addictions and those type of things is related to poor. So, I mean, he just could not see any way around that. Because I tried. Honestly, I did. I said, well, they're kind of poor. And
did you beg?
Yeah.
Have we contacted the state just to be sure that there aren't any other viable avenues? I mean, they're the ones, if it's their statute, they're the ones who would enforce it on us if we didn't follow it.
Your Honor, I think that it's set in place for the reason of, these are public properties that are owned by the public, and everyone should have an opportunity to bid on them instead of the city choosing who they're going to sell it to, and I think that's what it's avoiding.
This is the same situation that you get into when you're purchasing properties like the transition housing up there. A large part of that was purchased with grant monies through the state that wasn't available to the public, but it was available to the city if, they sponsor and yada, yada, yada. And it goes on. And then they come in, turn around and sell it, and the city had invested a lot of time, effort, and money in that facility as well that just went away. And that's not a good use of the resources of all of the citizens, I think. And that's what that kind of a law is to protect. So
we can't pick winners and losers.
You what?
We can't pick winners and losers.
But yet, if we need to build a street through where your house sits and we decide it's a big enough issue, we can in fact build a street through where your house sits. Not that I would ever want to go there, but I mean, I don't understand how we can slice it both ways. Either it's for the good of the community, which I think a very strong case could easily be made in this particular instance, or it's not. I don't know. I hate bureaucracy, I guess. Sorry.
Your Honor?
Yes.
It would be a really wide street if you put a street in there. It's one of the few streets that are unimproved. But I think that there's ways around that other than that, and it's wonderful that they're optimistic enough that they are even thinking of spending that kind of money in our community and improving their facilities. And so, I think those are real positive ideas, and we need to get with them and support them as we can without breaking any rules, and help them any way we can to accomplish those tasks. And that's, that's been a real improvement in our community, in my opinion. Thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Is there,
Larson.
do we have, there's a lot of vacant commercial property on Main Street, and the uniqueness of the location that they have right there, do we have to have that appraised? Or can we just put it up for excess property?
No, Your Honor, yeah, we do have to have it appraised, because we had to do that on all the lots up at the airport. We had to appraised, and we had to sell them for at least appraised value.
We got into that with the properties down on the old hospital property as well. So anyway, what I'm hearing is that the council is supportive of trying to move forward with, and even if it's something that we're carrying part of the load on that note to make it happen, why it wouldn't be an outlandish figure. 250,000, why?
Because I tried to negotiate to say, well, some of the money that we give you in the 100,000, and they said, no, I mean, that's for operations, that's completely different. I mean, it would have to be an additional to the amount that we're currently giving them. But I don't know how big that number is, and so that's something we'll just have to, once we get that number from them, and but I think everyone's fairly supportive in moving that direction. It's just a matter of if it's 150,000, it may be, we're not going to be able to do that.
But I think we need to revisit the amount of money that the crisis center or the detox center is saving the city by virtue of the fact that we're not having to, incarcerate all of the people that we pick up. Maybe those numbers aren't quite as good as they used to be with the way that it was handled in the past. I know they've done away with a lot of the beds down there and whatnot, so those numbers might not be quite as in our favor, but I think it's still the right way to go and the right thing to do. So, okay, any other comments? Okay, utility rate discussion. Interim Public Service Director report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm just here to kind of present some information that, with Courtney's and her staff's help, we've put together. According to our city code, municipal code, we have to yearly look at our rates, and we have to adjust them by the current CPI, which I've included in your packet, and currently it is 1.1. Let me start our PowerPoint. And if we look at the funds separately, right now, currently, the water fund on the operational side, we have revenues of which we basically projected these. These are actual revenues through the current month, and then we projected them forward to July, because currently we've only collected 3 quarters out of the 4 quarters of our revenue for the fiscal year. So we took those actual receipts revenue that we collected, and then just projected that average to June. So through June, we are looking at collecting $2,666,293. Of that, we have expenditures, and again, we did the same thing. We took the expenditures that we've currently done through the 3 quarters, projected it, and those come to be $1,727,700, which means we have a little over $938,000 extra. Now, with the capital projects, because of the YDOT projects that we currently have, we have grants on some of those, on some of the water projects. So you look at what we got reimbursed back to the city for the grants. We've got a grant on the South Federal, and obviously the majority is on the Riverton water supply project. We've received back reimbursements of what we've paid out of $3,296,000 plus. The projected capital, the revenue from that is $758,000 or $753,255 for a total of $4,049,563. Year to date, what we've spent from the water fund for those capital projects is $3,565,198. If I look at what we currently have under contract with our capital projects with contractors and project out to June what I expect we're going to be paying, just with the way the construction's going on those, how the bills pay applications are coming in. We have an additional commitment of those capital projects, and it's mainly the three. It's the Riverton water supply, the South Federal, and the Riverview Road project. We're going to have an additional $1,394,000 $12, which means our projected capital projects expenditures for the year is going to be $4,959,210. If we take the difference of what we've got with our reimbursements and our expenditures, it's going to be a difference of minus $909,647, which will have to come from our reserves, which gives us a net increase to the fund of $28,946. Now the wastewater fund is not quite as good. Again, the revenue and expenditures were calculated the same way. We've got $1,881,175 for revenues. Our expenditures are $1,392,000 for an excess of $489,000 plus. Our capital projects, we don't quite have as much grant money on those. It only applies to South Federal. So South Federal, we really haven't got anything from YDOT on the construction end of it, so we haven't received any reimbursements as to date. We're looking at probably by June we'll have $187,750. Our year-to-date expenditures on those, which are Riverview Road, South Federal, and Riverview improvements. Riverton water supply shouldn't be there. What we've expended out for those three projects year to date is $536,105. Our commitments through June, unfortunately, are going to be $807,060, which gives us the projected expenditures for the year to date, end of the year. So $1,343,165, which gives us a difference of negative $1,155,415, which gives us a decrease in the fund of $666,292. Now on the sanitation side, again, our revenue is $2,390,874. Expenditures, $1,958,629 for a difference of $432,245. We don't have any capital projects in the sanitation, so we don't have any grants, so there's no reimbursements. We've had on our capital, we purchased a truck. We've had some fleet. That's really the only capital we've paid out. We've $30,319. Then we've purchased a couple of rollouts, which is going to be another $36,910 for a total of $67,222. And that difference to the fund is $365,023. So what this means is what we are recommending for our utility rates is for the water fund and the sanitation fund, just keeping it at the CPI. as required by the city code. So that's a 1.1 increase. That'll give us an additional $29,329 in the water fund. The sanitation, $26,300. Because the wastewater fund is severely depleted, we are recommending a CPI plus 5.9%. So for a total of 7%, which is going to increase the wastewater fund by $131,682. That's not going to cover what we are down, but we felt any higher increase would be detrimental. It'll allow us to, over, I think, 3 years, kind of maybe recoup that. So with these recommendations, this is what it will impact the citizens. Currently, they would pay on a average of 8,000 gallons of water with a 90-gallon rollout container without recycling. So you've got your residential water base, which is $16.83. For there's 8,000 gallons, you have an additional for water usage of $18.82. The residential sewer base is $15.69, with the usage for the sewer is $17.56. Sanitation is $31.92 for a total bill of $100.82. With the proposed increases that we're looking for the utility rates, your residential water base would go up to $17.02. Your water usage would go up to $19.06. Your residential sewer base would go up to $16.79. Your sewer usage would go to $18.79. Your sanitation would increase to $32.27 for a total of $103.93. So the difference is $3.11 on your residential bill a month. And that's it for the slides. There is one additional thing. Currently, we have a bulk fill station. It's really never been addressed. I just discovered this. It's not addressed in the resolutions on a yearly basis. It currently has not been raised from the rate it was established at for, I tried to probe Dennis's mind, and we're thinking 15 years. So in the resolution, we are going to address the bulk fill station, and we will be increasing that cost. Currently, basically the people who use that are contractors for their water and out-of-town residents who have cisterns on their property to fill up their cisterns. There's really no residential use of it per se. So other than that,
what are those rates? Do you know them offhand?
It is 25 cents for 125 gallons. Really good.
And you're proposing to raise it to?
I am proposing to raise it like 25 cents. It's based on a time, and that right now we can only accept coins. So we are purchasing a machine where we can do prepaid cards. And I'm proposing to increase that to 25 cents for like 70 gallons. If you look at what Lander charges, they, I think, charge 25 cents for 50 gallons. I didn't want to quite increase it that much, you know, because it's going to be a shock when we do it, because they haven't had it increased in 15 years. So I'm looking at trying to do 70 gallons. So is there any questions I can?
Have you looked into what they charge for bringing water to a cistern in Lander?
I've not looked at those companies. No, I just know what they're charging at the fill station.
5 cents a gallon.
Okay.
40 gallons. 400. What's a gallon? 4,000 gallons at a time.
4,000 gallons.
Okay. Any questions of Ms. Wilhelm?
Your Honor.
Yes.
So on the proposed residential billing, or either, or the current, the residential water base, how many gallons does that equate to?
That is, with your base rate, you get 5,000 gallons?
5,000?
It's zero? Okay, sorry. So with the water usage is where you get, the sewer usage is where you get 4,000 gallons within the base rate. So within the water base rate, you don't get any gallons.
Oh,
So it's on a usage charge, then it's a certain charge for your 0 to 500, and then for 600 to, yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Step like that.
How about the commercial rates?
Those would go up the same. I think it's impacted about the, we didn't do that.
So the
but
commercial rates will go up to 7% as well?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, because our receipts are based on all the receipts we get. We don't necessarily take out just the residential versus the commercial. It's based on the total receipts from all the entities, so we would have to raise all of the receipts that much by those rates.
I know the commercial rates are quite a bit higher, and I was just wondering, how that would figure. Is there a reason that they weren't included in this?
No, we just kind of overlooked them. I'm sorry for that.
Okay. Any other questions? No?
Okay, and I think Sandy's got some information on how she's going to raise her rates for building permits and stuff, I believe.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. We met with the Construction Board of Appeals last month. Councilman Guard was there. What we did is what we have been doing in the past 5 years. We've been raising our building permit fees every other year because some of our fees are very low, like 11 cents a square foot or 12 cents a square foot. It's hard to add a small percentage to that. So by taking it every 2 years and doing 2-year CPI, it's a little bit closer, a little easier to do that. So I brought it up to the Construction Board of Appeals, and they agreed to that. We did like a 49 cents a square foot turned to 51 cents a square foot for a new commercial construction. The 12 cents a square foot that we had, we didn't change that because we had changed it a couple years ago. And when you add a certain percentage, it doesn't even add a penny. So some of those we've kind of had to do. A 39 cents a square foot went to 40 cents. Some of the other things, for a mobile home set, right now it's $75 and it went to $77. So it didn't add an awful lot. One thing that we did do, though, is we actually lowered a rate. And what we do on some of these is we do a 1% of a 1.15% of a contract amount. We had raised that in the past, but to do 1% of a contract amount, as the contracts increase per cost of living for the contractors, if we do 1%, we're already getting that increase without us raising that rate itself. So we just brought it back down to the 1% that it was before, and we'll just continue using 1% on that one. So ours didn't raise a lot. We didn't change any of the fees for the zoning or variance. We had done that a year ago, and we did some checking, and they cover our costs fine.
Okay.
Your Honor?
Yes, Councilman Fabian.
So does that work then that, like, if I, say, build a commercial building, if it costs the contractor less to pay 1% of versus paying the square footage, or do they pay both, or how do you decide on those?
Normally we do the per square footage. It's usually less money. The permit is usually less. On occasions it kind of depends on alterations. If you do an alteration to a building, it's sometimes hard to calculate the square footage that you're doing the alteration in. So it's easier to take 1% of the contract amount than it is to try to figure out what the square footage of that alteration is, because you might be doing something in this part of the house, you might want to wire over to here and do another thing. So that's why we do contract amount and do 1%.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions of Andy? Okay, my only comment, and it's a personal failing, is that I keep confusing the CIP with the CPI. and the capital improvement plan versus the consumer price index. And I get them twisted around every once in a while and start thinking one way, and I thought, man, that doesn't make any sense at all. And then I come back to reality. So I don't know if anyone else has that problem, but at any rate, okay. I think we've had a good meeting this evening. We've discussed a lot of issues and a lot of items before the city. I think the people that are listening at home, I hope they've got a broader understanding of what it is we're trying to deal with, and trying to look at all sides of the issues and, you know, move forward in a positive way for our community. So I want to thank the staff and their hard work to bring these things forward. And kind of like that. I was just reading in the paper this evening that a good friend of mine passed away, Barclay House. And Barclay's been around here for years and years, so I want to wish his family the very best in this difficult time as well. So anyway, I guess the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the work session at this time.
Your Honor, I'd make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.